Guess what's back, 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 back again, again, again. Bookardy's back, back, back. Tell a friend, friend, friend. Hello Bookworm family, welcome back to my channel. If you're new, I'm Danny. Go ahead, hit that subscribe button down below. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell because it's always a mystery when I post new videos. And if you're not already following me on Instagram, please be sure to do that. It is at _dancing_bookworm. I post on there full book reviews and bookish content. So it's back, guys. My TBR game, Bookardy, is back. So if you guys are new to my channel, back when I first started doing reading elements for my channel, back when I was younger, this channel used to be solely for dancing stuff. As I got older, I no longer needed it to be for dancing because I didn't dance professionally anymore and I just taught, so I didn't really need to use it for that. So I switched it over to my second passion, which is reading. And when I first started doing the reading elements of my YouTube channel, book games were like all the rage. So TBR games were all the rage. So it started with Cody's Wheel of Books, then it was Becca's, then it was Jade's TBR Pursuit, Gav did Player TBR Right, there's versions of Candyland, Chutes and Ladders, Bingo. There are so many different, there's darts, there's M&Ms, there's so many different book games out there. So I wanted to create my own, and I created Bookardy, which is loosely based off the game Jeopardy. So that's kind of how this got started, was I wanted to jump on that bandwagon, and it looked really fun, and I loved watching those videos where people posted their TBR games, and I really, really enjoyed watching those, so I wanted content like that on my channel as well. I don't know if there's anybody else who's done Bookardy since I did it, but back when I started it, I was the only one who was actually doing it called Bookardy. I don't really know if anyone else did like a Jeopardy style or anything like that after me or before me. I don't know. But as far as I know, I was the first one who did Bookardy, but I'm not really sure. There could be other people who did it too that I just don't know of. But yeah, so when I stopped doing my channel, I stopped playing Bookardy because I didn't read for almost a year. And I decided that when I started my YouTube channel up again, I wasn't ready to take on doing a TBR game, because when you do a TBR game, ideally, you're supposed to read all the books that you get stuck with on this game. And whether you want to read them or not, you're supposed to read them. And I didn't feel ready for that yet. But now it's been a few months, and I feel like I'm ready to play the game again. So we're going to give it a go. If it fails epically, then it fails epically. We are in the middle of August right now, so I am just going to do 4 books for this one, just because I'm already mostly through my August TBR, so I'm not really worried about not getting to 4 more books, because I've already read all the books that I've wanted to read so far, minus like 2 or 3, I think. So, but normally I will do more rolls than this. This was just kind of like a sample to reintroduce everyone back to Bookardy. Because we're in the middle of the month, I don't want to do anything too crazy. But let me explain to you how this works. So, like I said, it is loosely based off the game Jeopardy. You guys will get a chance to see the board a little bit better when I set it down to do the rolls, but this is what it looks like right now. So we have the categories that go across the top. We have sci-fi or fantasy, realistic or contemporary, mystery or thriller, nonfiction or memoir, historic, historical, whatever you want to call it, and miscellaneous, which could be any other genre of book, poetry, essays, short stories, romance, anything along those lines. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to roll a dice. If I roll a 1, I have to pick one of the 100 cards. 2 is a 200 card, 3 is a 300 card, 4 is a 400 card, 5 is a 500 card. 6 is any card I want, so I get the choice of the board. So I get to pick what category I want that aligns with that number. So let's say I roll a 1 and I decide I want to pick 1 for sci-fi fantasy. I would then pick this card, and on the back there is a prompt that I would have to fulfill. The 100s are easier prompts, like something with a nice cover, or a random number generator, which if I roll random number generator, I don't have to stick to the genre. Same with random letter generator, I don't have to stick to the genre. So if I roll one of those, that's why they're under 100, because it doesn't really matter. Also under 100 is like mood read and stuff like that. And then it goes down to like 500s where things get a little bit more difficult. Like I have to find a book that relates to a natural disaster. I have to find a book that was reviewed by one of my favorite authors. So things that are a little bit more difficult to find. And like I said, if I roll a 6, I can pick anyone I want. So that's pretty much the gist of the game. And like I said, there are prompts on the back. So I will roll a dice. Let's say I roll a 3. I will then pick what category I want, but pick one of the 300 cards. I'll flip the card over, read that prompt, and then find a book that goes with that prompt to put on my TBR for the month. So, and then I will say, not for this round, because this is just like a practice round, and I'm already midway through the month, but if I don't read all the books, there will be a punishment of having to do an extra roll. So however many books that I plan to read that month, let's say my general number is 6. Let's say I do 6 rolls a month. If I don't read all the books that I'm supposed to read in the month before, I would then have to do 7 rolls. So kind of along those lines. If you guys watch other TBR games, they're pretty easy to pick up on after you watch a couple of rolls. So I do have my dice here. We are going to do 4 rolls because we're in the middle of the month already, and just kind of see what we get and go from there. So let's go. So you guys can kind of see the board a little bit better now. I am just doing this on my bed. I might find a better place to record once I'm like more professional about this again. This box just has extra prompts in it. So it has extra prompts and more Velcro, which is what the prompts are stuck on with, just so that it's all in one place. But we're going to do our first roll. Let's give it a go. Here's my dice. Whoops, that wasn't the roll. Okay. Oh, I got a 6. So my very first roll, back to Bookardy. I get to pick any category, any number. Awesome. So I'm going to go with sci-fi fantasy because that's what I have the most of, and because I get to pick, I'm going to go with the easiest one, and I have a mood read, so I can mood read any sci-fi fantasy I want. So let's see what book I have for that. So for the prompt of mood read sci-fi fantasy, this one was already on my TBR, so it's a little bit of a cheat, but I do have to read it, and I haven't read it yet, so I'm going to put this on here. And this is Wake, and this is by Lisa McMahon, and this is about a girl who can jump into people's dreams, and she normally only jumps into pleasant dreams, but now she's suddenly able to jump into nightmares, and she's realizing that there's a lot of problems in the world with these nightmares. So this was already on my TBR, or a lot of problems in certain people's lives because of nightmare, something like that. Anyway, so this was already on my TBR, but since I haven't read it yet, I'm going to count it for this because it is a physical book that I do have to read fairly soon, although the print is fairly large for this. I expected it to be, I mean, it's a YA, but, and it's also written in diary format. That'll be a lot easier to read, so this will be what I read for that. All right, let's do roll number 2. A 1. Okay, being super easy. So now these are the ones that I have left. So I can't pick, obviously, sci-fi fantasy again. So I have to pick something else. So I think for 1, I'm going to read let's go miscellaneous, because it could be anything. A book with a pretty cover. So any book that I want that has a pretty cover. Let's see what I got. Okay, so for the prompt of a beautiful cover or a pretty cover for miscellaneous, I picked, I don't actually own this book, but I've seen it at the stores, and I know that it's beautiful because it's a very popular book, but I did find it on Scribd, so I'm going to read it on Scribd, but I know it has a pretty cover, and that is The Nutcracker and the Mouse King by E.T.A. Hoffman. This is obviously what the ballet is based off of, about a little girl named Clara who receives a Nutcracker doll on Christmas, and the Nutcracker comes to life and takes her to this magical land. So I never actually read anything related to the Nutcracker because I was a dancer growing up, so my main focus was learning the routines and knowing the ballet's storyline, and I found that a lot of the books don't really follow, like even like the originals, like the ballet doesn't super follow the book. But as a dancer, I've grown up with the ballet my whole life. I actually am doing something based on the Nutcracker for Christmas this year, so I want to read it and get into it before I have to start that choreography in September. So yeah, so I'm going to be reading The Nutcracker and the Mouse King by E.T.A. Hoffman for that one. All right, we have 2 more rolls. A 4. So this one's going to be a little bit more of a challenging prompt. So for this one, I'm going to go, let's go realistic contemporary. Think that'll be good. And this says, supposed to read in school, but didn't. So a book that I was supposed to read in school, but never read while I was in school. Ooh, I don't know what I should read for this one, because realistic contemporary is tough for that. So let's go see what I have. So for the prompt of a book that I was supposed to read in school but never did, realistic contemporary, I'm going to be reading Maniac Magee by Jerry Spinelli. I never read this in school. I was supposed to read it, I think, in like 7th grade. And I only remember watching the movie and really liking the movie. And I had to look up to see if this had some historical element to it. And I think the time period is a little historical, but it's mostly realistic contemporary. Not contemporary because it's an older book. This was written in 1990, and I think it still takes place in the 1990s. I might be wrong, but it just says that it takes place in a small town that is still having issues with racism. So I don't think it takes place in like the 60s or 70s, which I would count as more of like a historical read, but this was released around the year that I was born. I was born in 1992. This was released in 1990, and I think that's the time period it takes place in. I'm not 100% sure. If I'm wrong and I read it, whoops, that's my game. But this is about a boy who is tragically orphaned, and he ends up going to this small town, and he realizes that the town is still very racist and that there's a lot of issues with that within the town, and he wants to find a way to make it right. So that's what I will be reading for that prompt. All right, guys, one last roll. Let's see what this equals. A 6! I get to pick again. Oh, I am so lucky. Okay, well, I won't pick a 1 because I feel like that's a little bit of a cop-out. So let's go for a 2 historic. And this is a historic book with a person on the cover. So let's see what I have for that. So for the prompt of historical has a person on the cover, I'm going to be reading one of the I Survived books. Obviously there's a person on the cover right there, and this is I Survived the Sinking of the Titanic 1912 by Lauren Tarshish. I have loved the I Survived books since I started reading them. I read them, I think, when I was substitute teaching about 5 years ago was the first time that I was exposed to these. And then somebody gave me a bunch of YA and middle grade books, just donated them to me because they knew I liked to read, and I love these books, and I am currently going through an obsession with the Titanic right now. I watched the Titanic 2 times this year so far, and I've been really wanting to read more books about it, but I don't have any like adult books about the Titanic on my shelf currently, and this one fits the prompt, so I'm going to be reading this one. But usually the I Survived books take place during the event, obviously, but they usually take place from one kid's point of view that obviously ends up surviving the disaster, but all the struggles that it took to survive the disaster. So that is what I will be reading for that prompt. Again, I'm really into the Titanic right now, so if you guys have any like recommendations for Titanic books that are like fictional, like I know a lot of the history of the Titanic. I don't super want to read a nonfiction about the Titanics, but if you guys know one that is like really good, let me know. Or if you guys know a fictional one that's really good, let me know. Because I am also doing a Titanic dance this year, a dance based on the Titanic for my contortion class. So I really want to make it good and learn a lot about the Titanic and be able to teach them stuff about the Titanic too. But this is like a 4th grade reading level, I think. Super easy, super fast. I'll probably read it this weekend just because I want to, depending on how long my other book takes me that I'm reading right now. But I am very excited to read this one. I was hoping I could fit it on here. Okay, so next month, these squares that are empty now will have new prompts put in them. So I'll put in new prompts for next month. All right, guys, so that concludes the first back to Bookardy board. So that's pretty much it. I'm going to read those books this month. There was only 4 of them, so it shouldn't be too hard, and they were fairly short ones, so that's nice. This is kind of like a just introduction to what Bookardy was before I stopped doing it and trying to jump back into it. So let's hope I can stick with it. Let's hope I have a good time with it. And if it stops being fun, I might take a month off or 2. But I think it's pretty fun. So I'm excited to keep going with it. So I will see you guys in the next video. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.
Wasn't that a great video? Clearly books make me very happy. Now you can make me happy too. Click the subscribe button to follow my channel. Don't forget to give me a thumbs up if you think I did good. And the notification bell will let you know when I post new content. Also, follow my Instagram for more book shenanigans.